We are back in live at Magnet Network Live. I'm your host, Maggie John, and I'm here with Scott Stirrett. Scott is the founder of Venture for Canada, a national charity dedicated to fostering entrepreneurial skills in young Canadians through fellowships and training programs. His work focuses on connecting graduates with startups and small businesses, helping bridge the skills gap in the Canadian labor market and promoting entrepreneurship among young people. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me about your biggest aha moment today.
I think in the opening remarks, where the speaker was talking about the role of artificial intelligence to challenge people's thinking.
Was this Vivian?
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about Vivian today.
I thought she did an awesome job. And I think often when I'll use AI, it is more as just like an assistant kind of like function. And it's not in that challenge capacity. And I thought that was a kind of novel way to think about how to use AI in day-to-day life.
She has a lot of people thinking about what she said today. Thanks for that, Scott. So talk to me a little bit more about what you do at Venture for Canada. How can young professionals better prepare for the evolving demands of the future workforce?
There are many different ways. One that comes to mind is getting practical work experience as early as possible. So whether it's in high school or university or college, doing internships, doing work-integrated learning experiences, and really having a practical environment to practice and develop your skills. So that's first. Second is really go out and build a professional network. I think learning from mentors, learning from peers, learning from other people who are in your space is invaluable to help prepare yourself for the rapidly changing future of work. And the third point that I'd say is be curious. Go and consume information from a really wide range of sources. And I think the people who are innately curious, who embrace lifelong learning, are going to be well poised to thrive in a world that is changing very rapidly.
Those all sound great, but they're hard.
Absolutely.
So how do you do that if you don't have a network? How do you do that if you don't have access to a lot of the things that you've mentioned?
I think in the specifically related to the network question, one of the most important things is to go out and proactively like set goals for yourself in terms of growing your network. So whether that's saying every week I'm going to meet with one new person who I've never met with before, and I'm going to do that through reaching out on LinkedIn or sending cold emails. Gradually, over the course of a year, that's 50 new people. And then over the course of many years, that ends up being hundreds of different people. So that's one way that I would answer as it relates to growing your professional network. But I'd say that that same principle can apply to many other things. Set small goals for yourself, whether it's on a weekly, monthly, bi-weekly basis. And over time, you make significant progress towards, I think, preparing yourself for the future of work.
And what skills do you see as most crucial for success right now?
I think a lot of socio-emotional skills are increasingly important in an age of artificial intelligence. And some of those socio-emotional skills that are particularly important are the ability to work with other people. Are you somebody who can challenge, but is also like agreeable? I think just because you're really smart isn't necessarily a path to success. You need to be able to work in a way that is somewhat harmonious with a diverse range of different people. So that's one socio-emotional skill that I think is really important. A second one I think that's really important is ability to communicate. Can you communicate clearly? Can you communicate in an organized way? Can you communicate in a way that meets people where they're at and is tailored to a specific audience? So communications, both written and spoken, I think is increasingly important. And a third socio-emotional skill that I think is increasingly important is prioritization and focus. I think we are increasingly bombarded with a lot of distractions, and the ability to both focus as well as prioritize what's the most important thing at this specific kind of moment is something that can give someone a significant advantage in their life and career.
Are those skill sets, if someone's listening to this and they're like, yeah, I'm not that great at communication, or, I have challenges in these areas, is that something that you could learn and grow in? Is that something that you need a mentor to kind of identify to you that, yeah, you might have some challenges in this area, might want to grow in this area? How do you foster that, grow that, nurture that to be a good employee?
You can definitely foster all of those different things. And I'll provide a few specific examples of how.
Yeah.
I think the first is through practical work experience, particularly if you're a young person, do a lot of internships, do a lot of work integrated learning projects. And these situations provide a real world practical way where you can practice and develop some of these skills. So that's the first recommendation. The second, I would say, is set learning goals for yourself. So similar to the comment in the other question, is set concrete goals of, hey, I want to learn, I want to learn more about, let's say I want to take a public speaking course by the end of this year, or I want to have 3 different situations where I practice my public speaking in the past year.
Mm-hmm.
So set learning goals for yourself. I think the third is think about creating like a personal advisory board for yourself. What I mean by that isn't a formal board of directors that you meet with on like a quarterly basis that gives you feedback, but more of like a kitchen cabinet of people who come from diverse walks of life, who know you in a varied way, and engage those folks also in terms of how their advice for how you can be better at all of these things. And if you want to learn more about a personal advisory board, I recommend Google MIT personal advisory board research. And the study from MIT breaks down, I think it's 7 different types of people. And by types, they mean like career guide, mentor, kind of, et cetera. And each member of your personal advisory board can fill like a different niche that's helpful for you in your career. So those would be the three pieces of advice I would have in terms of how to actually like achieve those goals.
Just curating the people that you have around you. Just to our audience, you might notice that the background noise is getting a little bit louder. We are at the Stirrett of York, which is in the heart of the Distillery District and kind of the nerve center for Magnet Network Live. And this is where we're recording our podcast. So you will hear a lot more chatter and activity in the background as Scott and I are talking and chairs moving, as you can hear as well. Scott, let's talk a little bit more about startups and small businesses. What role do startups and small businesses play in driving innovation within Canada's economy, and how can they better support entrepreneurial talent?
Small businesses are the core of Canada's economy. Almost 99% of businesses in Canada are small businesses. And small businesses employ a significant percentage of Canadians and are like the backbone of the economy. I also often think that many small businesses are some of the most innovative companies out there because they're so scrappy. They have limited resources. Innovation, or necessity, is the mother of innovation. And I think that startups and small businesses are a huge driver of innovation in this country. I think that small businesses can better foster entrepreneurial talent through a few different things. One way is providing structured work integrated learning programs for young people to work in their companies and being intentional about that. A second is really thinking about, even when you're a really small business, how to build an employer brand so that people in your community know about the small business and think about it as a place to potentially apply. And I think the third is just think about implementing like basic business practices around like human resources, such as like weekly one-on-ones, employee onboarding. I am always amazed at the number of sort of small businesses who don't do those things. And I have empathy, also in the experience of having founded Venture for Canada and been a very small organization at some point, that sometimes when you're really small and you have so much on the go, it's easy to not do those things. But by not doing it, you end up creating more work for yourself later on. So invest in widely accepted kind of business practices around how to manage and support people's development.
Okay. And how do you envision entrepreneurial skills contributing to more adaptable and inclusive workplaces in a tech-driven world?
I think, well, for us, to be entrepreneurial is to identify and act upon opportunities to create value for others. We leverage a framework called EntreComp that stands for the Entrepreneurial Competency Framework. That is one of the most thorough definitions of what are entrepreneurial skills out there. And so for us, that ability to identify and act upon opportunities to create value for others is inherently related to adaptability, because in a world that's constantly changing, there are all these new opportunities that are out there. And to be entrepreneurial means the ability to adapt and to act on, and to identify those opportunities. So that's how it relates to adaptability. I think on the topic of inclusivity is that I would answer in two different ways. I think the first is that for a lot of socioeconomically marginalized people, being entrepreneurial provides more of a path to creating impact than working within existing structures, where there can be more systemic bias like baked in. What I mean to that is entrepreneurs still operate within a broader like context, but I think when you're an entrepreneur, you're more in the driver's seat, and you have more self-determination. So I think part of building a more inclusive society where all voices are represented is where where the entrepreneurial ecosystem reflects more the diversity of a country and the world. I'd say the other part is that there are so many different needs that different communities have. And I think entrepreneurs, through new product offerings, have the ability to solve the pain points of diverse communities as well. So that's another aspect that I think entrepreneurial skills can contribute to a more inclusive as well as a more adaptable world and economy.
Thanks so much, Scott. That was Scott Stirrett. He is the founder and CEO of Venture for Canada.
Thank you.